Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucia Yar. I am acting editor-in-chief at EURACTIV Slovakia web portal, and it is my utmost pleasure to welcome you all today at today's online roundtable titled Gender Bias in Artificial Intelligence. The discussion is organized by the French Institute in Slovakia and the Ulysseus consortium of the European University Initiatives. During today's panels, we will hear from 5 experienced, extraordinary, and accomplished ladies from IT-related sectors, and we will discuss how gender bias influences technological developments and vice versa. As artificial intelligence certainly stands out as a helpful, but often potentially also maybe as a hurtful tool in equity agenda. Most importantly, we intend to share best practices and solutions about how to eliminate such bias creation at the AI and new technologies altogether. So I'm very glad that we were able to put together a very interesting panel. But before I start, I will let this online floor to another guest of ours, Mr. Jan Potra, who is Attaché for Scientific and Academic Cooperation and at the French Institute in Slovakia, who will officially open our event today. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucia. So, as you said, we're here today to discuss gender biases in artificial intelligence. Why did we consider this issue? That's because no matter how old you are, you probably have a hard time remembering how life was when you couldn't ask your cell phone for directions. Technological changes have come fast. There were many things, however, that we couldn't teach computers to do until now. Artificial intelligence and machine learning now allow us to teach them virtually anything. And that will probably have a bigger and faster impact on our everyday lives than any other recent technology. Unfortunately, when we train a computer through machine learning, we sometimes also teach it some of our human faults, and among them gender biases. And it seems absolutely unacceptable to widely rely on a technology that may favor one half of the population or the other, even more so if it gives the impression that this lack of equity is justified by the machine. France has been pushing for the digital transformation in Europe as a means of recovery, of further development, of equity, and of strategic autonomy. Digital transformation will be a focus of the French presidency of the European Union in the first half of 2022. At the same time, gender equality is a priority for France, and we aim to kickstart actions which, in the scope of 5 years, will make a change in women's rights. The Generation Equality Forum, which is to be held in Paris from June 30th to July 2nd, will be an opportunity to put a spotlight on proposals for action. Artificial intelligence is one of the reasons why these two struggles, or these two causes, digital transformation and gender equality, cannot be fought separately. Our goal with today's roundtable is to allow us to move forward on both of them. So on behalf of the French Institute in Slovakia, I would like to thank the speakers for their participation and the audience for their attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, as well. Before I go ahead and introduce our panelists, I would like to also welcome all of you, our audience, who came today logged in either to Zoom or following us through Facebook, because obviously this is an event for you, and we would very much want you to be part of this roundtable, online table that we created over here. There are many of you from academia, universities, startups, many women and men interested in the subject, but as I said, we absolutely want to encourage you to participate. We already received a couple of interesting questions, which I want to incorporate into the debate, but certainly we want to hear more of you. So please feel free, write down to Q&A. There is a button which all of you already know by now, and really become part of this discussion. And now the most important part at the beginning is the introduction of our experienced panelists. And I'm going to start in France with Hélène Deckx van Ruys. Yeah, co-driver of the working group on AI for the French Association Library of Equality. Welcome, Helen.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucia.
Ms. Jana Novohradska from the Digital Policies Department at the Deputy Prime Minister's Office for Investment, Regional Development and Informatization of the Slovak Republic. Welcome. Oh, I cannot hear you. Yes, the mute button.
Thank you, Lucia. And, good evening. And I would like just to add a small correction. We are a Ministry of Investments, Regional Development.
Now it's the Ministry. Yes, the transformation is yes, you're right. Thank you. Ms. Serena Villata, Deputy Scientific Director to the Institut 3IA of Côte d'Azur. Welcome, Serena.
Hello.
Petra Kotuliakova from the association IT, which in English goes as also you in IT, right? Something like that, which promotes access for women to the digital work field.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, and Ms. Martina Zelenakova, professor at Technical University of Košiciach. Welcome as well.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Our pleasure as well. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We would like to frame this today's discussion into a certain three main subjects. Firstly, we will look into some kind of technical aspects of AI and what biases actually are occurring and can potentially occur with the wrong application of AI. Secondly, what we will look into what are actually the implications of such disparities in various sectors, including IT jobs, tech, education, but also maybe in other areas like health, HR, experience. But the most important part of the discussion that we will have today, we'll be looking into solutions and really best practices, because we put together ladies from Slovakia, from France, but also experience around Europe and further abroad. So I think this sharing will be the best part, what we can get out of this discussion. So let's start. In order to understand maybe a little bit better what our panelists are actually doing, what is their experience in the two areas that we deal with today, gender bias and AI, let's shortly have a first round of a slight introduction, which I think will be done the best by each and every one of you, our panelists. So Ellen, maybe you can start first and introduce what the Laboratory of Equality is doing and what you are particularly doing in it.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucia, and thank you for this invitation to talk about AI bias. It's a very hot topic for the moment, so thank you to offer us the opportunity to talk about it. Well, my name is Hélène Deckx van Ruys, and I work as a volunteer to le Laboratoire de l'égalité, and I co-lead the think tank of women and artificial intelligence with Muriel Garnier. Well, a quick remember of what the Laboratoire de l'égalité is. It's an association created 10 years ago, whose aim is to promote the same labor rights for women and men, gender equality at work, and also to defend women's rights in general. So how we process to act? In fact, we catch the attention of government, institution, public opinion on all topics as AI, for example, by organizing debates or meeting with significant people who have an expertise on it and proposing solutions. And I would like just to add quickly that regarding AI bias, we, the Laboratoire de l'égalité, noticed as of 2017 that there was already a crucial point regarding gender-based algorithm discrimination and bias. And at this title, le Laboratoire de l'égalité launched Alert on it. And our mission today is towards education and raise awareness.
So we will definitely go on with those exactly the topics that you portrayed over here. We will come back to that certainly. Ms. Novohradska, Ministry of Informatization, please also introduce a little bit more what the department that you're working for is doing in the field.
Thank you, Lucia. So our department is focusing, or I am predominantly focusing on two agendas which overlap, and that's agenda of women in digital and the agenda of the artificial intelligence policy settings, regulatory framework, and the ethics of AI in an international global context. So we are very much focused on ensuring that the Slovak Republic represents and follows the European direction and strategy in terms of the development of the artificial intelligence ecosystem, not just locally in Slovak Republic, but also on the international scene. And we are very active in, for example, international organizations such as the Council of Europe, where we represent a Office of Gender Equality Rapporteur for the Artificial Intelligence Committee KAHAI, that's tasked with exploring the feasibility and delivering a feasibility study on the regulatory, on the elements of a regulatory framework for artificial intelligence. And it's wider than the European Union. And then as well within the UNESCO scene, where we are as well actively participating in the intergovernmental sessions, preparing the recommendations on ethics in AI. So this is the international element of the agenda. Then we of course have the local focus, and this is where the women in digital and AI overlap. And we have a very strong focus on ensuring that we bring this problem of underrepresentation, the current underrepresentation of girls and women in ICT and STEM field of study. And this is where we also partnered with Petra's IT. And this is a great success story because we have been able to run the International or the Girls' Day, which is an educational activity in terms of capturing the audience of the high school girls, which are the most vulnerable from the age perspective. And we were able to run it thanks to or leverage the expertise and long years of hard work of IT and Petra. So thank you. And this year we were able, thanks to this, leverage that and establish the first European Day for girls and women in ICT that followed the UN methodology of actually establishing, and all the EU countries agreed that we will celebrate this and educate the girls on the same day, which is the fourth Thursday of the fourth month each year. So this is one of the fantastic stories, but we are not complacent. We are moving on, and we are launching a new initiative in terms of measures to make the workplace more attractive for women. And therefore we are starting a public consultation on this as part of the measures in the strategy on women in digital. So that's just briefly, and I will follow them.
Sure, we will look into what is Slovakia particularly doing in the issue, but as you already kind of bridged it to Petra Kotuliakova, I will ask her to introduce IT.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Jana, for these kind words. I'm the founder and the leader of IT, the organization working with the girls and women in the field of motivation, empowerment, and education in tech fields. Because the situation in Slovakia, while it's similar as in Europe, we have about 13% of women working in ICT, and we try really to change the status quo because we are missing about 10,000 IT specialists in Slovakia right now, and the situation will be not going better. So we are working with girls from 8 years old through the high school girls until the adult women. And for all this group, we have different settings and programs to help them to gain the ICT knowledge and to be employable on the job market in Slovakia. So for us, it's important to discuss a lot about diversity, because this topic of today's discussion is very interesting and important for us, because in Slovakia, a lot of companies now, the diversity is a key word of all discussions But what is important to mention, the diversities can be really painful if the company is not ready to accept different people from different age, culture, religion, gender. So we have, I think, quite a long way to go to arrive what we would like to have really the higher number of women in ICT. So I'm glad to share today with you the ideas of what we can do in this field. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Petra. I think this is exactly what's motivating everyone to stay with us also. Serena Villata from Côte d'Azur and Institut 3IA. Please correct me if I'm spelling it wrongly, but go ahead, please introduce that.
It was perfect, Lucia, thanks. So I am from the 3A Côte d'Azur Institute, which is one of the 4 institutes for AI that has been created by the Ministry of Research here in France in 2019. So in our institute, I think that, let's say, our core business is AI research, broad AI research, sort of from core solutions in machine learning, in knowledge representation, towards applications in smart territories and e-health. What we did with respect to gender bias are mainly 2 kinds of different actions. One is more technical, so we are interested in investigating how gender bias arises, really from the technical point of view in AI applications, like for instance, chatbots. Okay, so how this bias is really injected in current AI applications. And on the other side, we are also interested in studying the ethical aspects of AI solutions. And finally, let's say last but not the least, we also pursue a number of activities trying to encourage graduate and undergraduate students, girls in particular, to go towards scientific research. Because sometimes when we meet students like in high schools, well, girls just don't feel at the level of pursuing a research career in scientific topics. So this is also one of the actions of our institute in order to encourage and reduce this gender bias.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. Martina Zelenakova from the Technická University of Košiciach.
Thank you very much. Let me greet you all. I'm not directly connected to the gender bias and to the artificial intelligence. I am professor at Technická University of Košice, but I have practical experience and knowledge at this field as I am teaching at the university, which is in the technical field, in the engineering field. I am also working in the environmental engineering, in the issues related to sustainability, and also the technical issues in this field. There is the practical impact of the gender bias, and we see it every day and meet it every day as the students at the technical science and at the STEM are almost more men than women, much more boys than the girls. So we are meeting and facing to this problem and to this issue every day. So it is, I can put a practical input to this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martina. I think this is exactly what we are looking for. So what actually is AI and how can gender bias actually occur in AI? We often hear that really 90% of data of today actually was created over the past 2 years, and there are millions and millions of kilobytes of data, 4.5 million YouTube videos every minute, 1 million Facebook logins every minute. So there's really a lot of data, and only actually 1% of it is being analyzed at this point. Therefore, as we said, artificial intelligence is really the way which can actually make sense out of all of this information, which many actually call petrol of the 21st century. So how can we can also hear that AI or machine learning still in some cases is good is as good as the data that we fill it in with, right? So as society gets often very biased, then artificial intelligence may have such sliding as well. I will start with Serena, because you are actually particularly at your work looking extensively, and you explained it, around what are maybe the source of biases with regards to AI and gender. So could you maybe explain how is AI working so that this biases can occur, or how can AI actually can get biased?
Sure. So as also Jan said at the beginning of an introduction of this roundtable, well, there is a lot of data, and actually, in particular, what we call the supervised machine learning starts with a bunch of data, which is taken as a kind of a good example from which the machine could learn. So this is the first, I would say, source of bias. This data is the data that we produce, for instance, if we think to messages, to textual content, we can think to the messages on social networks, for instance. This is the standard examples. But there are also many other kinds of data that we can have, like the reports from the recruiters of a company that after interviewing the people when there is an open position. So all this data is provided to the algorithm that just learn how to, for instance, make a classification. Just to give a short example, if the algorithm is has the target of choosing the next employee of a company, and then he has all the data of the previous recruiters, and also a number of other indicators. So for instance, I take the usual examples, so maternity leave, for instance, and other elements. Maybe the algorithm will learn that, well, actually, women are more absent from work than have to be substituted more than men. So it also learns that maybe this is not the optimal solution when you want to pick a new employee. This is the only thing I want to underline in all that is that in a way the algorithm has let's say he has no choice. Okay, so it's just an algorithm, it's just a computation, so it doesn't make any choice. The bias is in the data, and it is induced in the algorithm and in his future choices by the data he has. Then there is another kind of bias which is a bit more subtle to detect, which is the kind of bias that can be actually injected from a conscious or unconscious point of view by programmers, by the constraints that a company can put on the development of the AI applications. For instance, if I take another example, chatbots are more or less all with the voice of a woman. They almost never have the voice of a man, independently on the kind of use this chatbot are targeting. So this is the kind of bias we have, and sometimes it's hard to detect.
Mm-hmm. And we actually get this question beforehand from one of the people in the audience. There is a question whether it might be maybe possible to rather use machine learning or AI at the same time to model or design some kind of ideal state which could eliminate gender inequality. So maybe to suggest some kind of male-female ratio model in some selected areas. Did you come across such models?
Yeah, that's a possible. The possibility is to add, in a way, further constraints, further rules that the algorithm has to take into account. The problem is that each time it's difficult to state this rule in a clear way, because of course you cannot say to the algorithm, you do more or less like that, but then it depends on the situation. You need to give him very precise rules. So if you decide a ratio, then this is the ratio, and this is forever, despite all other criteria you can have. So this is also sometimes hard to be added by the person who conceives these AIs.
Mm-hmm. We will get definitely into the solution. So, but I will now go to Ms. Novohradska, because we have already said it at the beginning that really one of the biases that it's not only in the AI per se, but also in the technological sector as well. Really, only 20% of employees in technical roles at major machine learning companies are women. UNESCO, you mentioned, they are saying that about 12% of artificial intelligence researchers are actually women. So we already have that knowledge, but how can such bias occur in various even tech sectors? What is the place of women in the tech, if this is the data that we have, and where do we see maybe advantages and particularly disadvantages at this point? Microphone again.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. Very interesting question. So let me start. That the data shows indeed that the women are underrepresented in the ICT sector. Currently, the EU's Eurostat data shows that across the EU average, 17% of ICT workers are women. Women are the majority of EU population. More than 51% of EU population are women. Now, why? Why do we have majority of population underrepresented in a strategic and growing industry? This is a very interesting question. This is what we are trying to answer and address in our work at the ministry, and particularly within the Women in Digital Agenda and AI policies. And how can this AI bias occur in the sector? So first, let's look at the bias in the workplace. We have some data at the moment, but not as much as we would like or need. But the data that we do have shows that there is a bias that has been actually proved by some scientific studies, for example, of a large-scale study conducted back in 2017 by US universities on a open source software data available in GitHub, that showed that as soon as a software engineer's gender was known to the community, her code was less accepted by the project owner that she submitted the changes or the code to than if her gender was not known. The only change was if she already was known as a team member in a certain project, then her code was more accepted. So there we see that there is a clear proof that there is a bias in the workplace within the ICT sector, the software open source community, and then we can look at the other levels of bias in the tech sectors, such as the bias in the safety design. So we do have crash testing algorithms that are here to design and manufacture eventually car seats, seat belts for our safety. Now, these algorithms are optimized and designed for a male body, which results in women being almost 40, just a second, let me get the exact number, but the women are almost 17% more likely to die from a similar accident because of the way that the AI algorithms designed to actually create safety for us are designed for male bodies. They disregard a child, and they disregard a pregnant woman or a woman's body, and actually as well 47% higher risk of getting injured for women versus men in a similar type of accident. And this already exists. We know about this. We have to do something about it and change it. And this is what we are trying to do from the public sector, because public sector is as well looking for an active role within the building out of the AI ecosystem. And it has a very, very leading role in policy settings and regulatory framework. And then, of course, I want to carry on in terms of the bias in the representation layer. There is, if you type in the CEO's pictures in a Google search, the first 100 top-rated results will show you that only 11% of these top 100 pictures of CEOs globally, 11% are female pictures of women, even though in reality, actually 27% of all CEOs are men. So it's not, so even though we are still underrepresented, the representation layer by the major global search engine is giving you even distorts the user's perception and reality, and that further then impacts the users, men and women, in their vision about what is possible and the perception of women, which then leads to another measure that we are very much focused in terms of our agenda, and that is increasing a positive image of women in digital and ICT specialists among general public. Thank you.
I will just follow up very shortly with this. Before we get into what is actually done to avoid those numbers, which are often overwhelming every time we hear that, I wonder, could you maybe paint a little picture about the scene in Slovakia? Because I will ask a very similar thing to kind of compare it with France, but do we have some kind of data or a picture about how women are doing ICT?
So yes, we do have some data. As I mentioned, the European Union or European Commission compiles annually a Women in Digital scoreboard. The one available for 2020 shows that at the moment within Slovakia, there is about 13% female specialists in ICT in Slovakia, which is well below the EU average of 17%. And then, of course, we have some data which were provided to us kindly by from our cooperation with ITIT from the Girls' Day, where ITIT queried the participants and the high school girls, and there we show very interesting trends that the biggest positive impact on high school girls in terms of their decision making, whether to study a STEM field of subject further on or pick it up, or advanced digital skills, is their ICT teacher, so their high school teacher. So there you have a big pointer for us in terms of that it's important to have the quality ICT teaching staff and training of these professionals and their social standing in the society, which needs improving. And then we are now launching an initiative, which is part of the Women in Digital strategy to and the goal is to make the workplace more attractive for women in ICT, and therefore we are launching a survey among the ICT sector and ICT specialists, female especially, to get their view on what are the current obstacles to them achieving their career goals, or what is making the work in ICT sector or company for them difficult. Of course, we have the usual suspects, such as lack of flexibility, further lack of career progression post return after maternity leave, then lack of affordable and from the vicinity perspective, close by nursery, crashes, and we want to get the data from the workplace, and that's what we are doing this year to get to have a better look on this. But thanks to the work with ITIT, we have done some good data crunching in terms of the high school girls. So we are very much focused on data-oriented policy settings. Thank you.
So I will turn in Petra Kotuliakova. Also maybe your point of view of what is the current state in Slovakia at this point, but I also will extend the question to what can maybe such lack of diversity due to society, like Slovak one, a small one, particularly women to tech industry as such. You're working with tech industry, so what is this lack of diversity doing to work to tech companies, but also to society, perhaps?
There is direct implications given. So if it is less men in the like researcher and teachers, so it is the direct implication of it that we have at Technical University less students which are girls. Yeah, so it is direct connection. If I would continue with the data at Technical University of Košice is 30% of male, of female and 70% of male, especially at the Faculty of Electrotechnics and Informatics, which is directly connected to the artificial intelligence, AI. It is the situation that 1/4 of the staff is women, and 3/4 are men. So, and it is the direct implication that also the student, there is only 1/3 of the students are female and the rest are male. Because of this direct implication, they have the example and they have the idol, it is men. So they are only boys is majority at this faculty. And also the similar situation are in other engineering and technical sectors at the university. So, but it is only the copy of the situation in the industry, in the technical part of sector of industry. So it is the direct implication.
But does it also work, because particularly in the education sector, it is kind of well known that women are staying maybe longer and then men are going to private sector. Does this occur also in engineering, or you as a teacher are maybe more unique among other men? I wonder.
Not at the university, because university is not only about the teaching and education. University is half of the teaching and education and half of the research. So many men are staying and continuing to work at the university as they are devoting to the research and to the science. So they are, the situation in the higher education at the university is that still at technical sector, there is majority of the men. Maybe in the basic sector education or secondary education, the situation is different. Sure, there is much more women, and also in the sector which are much more devoted to the social science or humanity, there is much more women. But in the technical sector and engineering, the situation is similar, as my colleague said.
At the Technical University in Košice, does the university do some kind of how to call it, marketing in order to attract more women students, or it's not really there yet? Maybe it's not really on the daily agenda at this point.
It is a very good question, because it's just starting. Yeah, at the moment, maybe 2 years ago or the last year, and now it's just starting to make more advertisement science. There is the more programs which attract the girls to go to study. So, and I believe that it is the trend, as was said, it is because we have this roundtable today, that it is the trend to keep the girl in the science, in the engineering, in the AI, and to attract them and to involve them to these issues, technical issues.
And one last question to you. I wonder how this actually is taken by your male colleagues. We are here full women panel, but obviously I can, or probably we can kind of anticipate that not everyone is taking it with open arms. Is this development maybe getting anyhow better at the university level, or you still think that it's not fast enough? Let's call it this way.
No, I think that it is going better. Yeah,
okay.
It's sure going better, because as I mentioned, these programs, and we would like to attract girls and women to stay and to know and to get the women thinking into the technical things, because it is necessary to connect it together and to be in balance.
So that's a good thing that the appreciation is coming. Back to Petra Kotuliakova, I actually kind of painted the question for you. The situation in Slovakia, that was my initial question, and maybe what can this lack of diversity do to society, particularly women in tech industry, from your point of view?
Thank you, Lucia. So situation in Slovakia, I think Jana and also Martina described it as well. I would just correct and add information for the Technická University in Košiciach as well for other faculties. We are running the program in Slovakia called Spoznaj IT Faculty, so known IT faculties, where we are inviting high school girls to visit IT faculties in the way to know how the life at these faculties happens, what are the teachers there. So we are connecting directly high school girls with university students in the way that they can really introduce how those studies are going. And when we started this program, the standard IT faculties in Slovakia have had about 5% of girl students. So imagine that from whole bench of students, only 5% were girls. Now it is about 15. I know that it's still not enough, but even though it's a number where we can see, suddenly we can see the girls on the faculties, and it's really, we are very pleased by this. So this is for the IT faculties. Concerning the problem with lack of diversity, I think the biggest problem is the exclusion, because if we don't have diverse team in production, in development, the products developed by those teams will be not dedicated and will be not answering the questions and requests from women or different groups, as older people, LGBT community, religion. So if the product is developed only by one group, let's say young men in a middle age, the product will answer just the needs of this group, one white man in the middle age. So it's why we need to have the diverse team to answer and to really prepare the products and develop the products who will reflect the needs of all the wide group of users. Because as it was mentioned, this is a half of the world of the selling force we have in women, and we need to prepare the products for them. On the other side, the diversity, is well known that the companies with the diverse teams have better results, economic results, has a better beneficial benefits, so they're well quoted on the trade market. So this is all the chain of implication the diversity can bring to the company. But as I have mentioned before, it's not so easy to suddenly jump into having a diverse team because the people are not used to work in this mixed group. And shift this mindset, it can be hard and it will take time. So it happened this year that a lot of companies asked IT to run the workshops, how to create diverse teams and how to explain to employees what diversity can bring them. Because I think we need to start to discuss about the topic, and after then we can move to the next steps, because jumping suddenly and mixing everything can bring a lot of negative aspects, and the expectation will be not answered. So we need to really do very small steps in the way to arrive to the diverse teams.
And connecting it to the AI, do you think, and this is actually also one of the questions that we received, but do you think that artificial intelligence could be helping companies actually to reach the gender parity? Or do you think that in Slovakia, somebody's using a certain machine learning already for those purposes, or this is not really in place yet?
Well, for example, artificial intelligence is now strongly influencing HR procedures. I think you have heard about the problem in Amazon, where the AI was setting up that the system canceled or excluded all female CVs from the next hiring procedures. So if those kind of things happen and occurs, this really can create a big problem in the society, because I'm not sure when Amazon suddenly perceived that, well, we have the problem. But as it was mentioned before, these are the humans who create the algorithms for AI. So AI is a reflecting or actual situation in society. So once we have this gender bias or other bias, the AI will reflect this. So we need to change the perception of humans, how we are dealing them, how we are caring about the employer and about human, and after that we can really do the changes in AI. But what is sure that we need to do this, because even now the situation of the beginning, it's not good. The data put it in the AI algorithms was quite, I don't want to say wrong, but it was mostly focused on the males voices, faces, and so on. And we need to change these first data sets to allow to be recognized by the women also. So this can really create a lot of problems, and we need to do the steps for changing this.
Thank you. I see Ms. Novohradska wants to react, so go ahead, microphone.
Thank you. So I'm very glad that Petra brought up the issue of the AI being used by the HR systems to actually help them sift through the huge amounts of CVs that they receive. But there is already gender bias that's been brought into the AI algorithms that do this work, because, for example, in the language, the man use words such as executed, achieved, led, and these words are evaluated by the AI algorithms to be the one that are more successful, that are preferred, as opposed to women who actually design and write their CVs in a different way, which doesn't mean anything really. In terms of achieving the results, it's just that man says, I achieved this, I led this, I have done this, and a woman will be more likely to say that I worked on this as part of a team. And now the AI algorithm suddenly says, oh, well, I am going to get the successful leader. But this is the bias that was brought into that algorithm and weighing attributes that it uses, and in terms of evaluation who is more suitable candidate by the developers and the business analysts who have coded the AI system, the rule-based ones, and therefore the deterministic ones. So this is a problem, and the way about it is that we cannot have the idea of, oh, we are going to create an egalitarian AI system just like that, or just start it out, because it already started. It's already happening. The AI system is being built. The only thing we can do at the moment is focus, and this is what we should be doing in public sector as well, building a toolkit that is helping us to detect, diagnose, and clear the existing AI system, either in production or in the testing environment, and remove the bias and develop this toolkit, because there will be bias. And but our weapons need to be our ability. For that, we need AI tools to first detect, diagnose what exactly is causing the bias in the AI system. It can be distributed architecturally across AI systems in different levels: hardware, software, communication layer, representation layer, and then remove it. And that's expensive, but yeah, thank you.
Yes, let's keep the solutions and this. I'm still kind of keeping the debate at the problematic area or of the kind of a dumpy waters, or to kind of obtain picture about what are the issues that we are currently facing. Serena, I've seen that would like to react, but let's give a floor to Hélène. Just to explain a little bit more the situation also in France, so we get the fair picture, also maybe to compare with Slovakia, and also look into what some disadvantages are occurring for women.
Okay, thank you, Lucia. In fact, in France, we know that 88% of algorithms are built by men, and only 30% of the workforce in tech are women. What does it mean? It means that it's absolutely not acceptable that half of humanity is not involved and considered in the AI development. Gender equality, but also diversity, as we mentioned it, are the art of the change, and we have to rely on them. And the key for me is that we have to make the lines move by encouraging girls to go in the STEM field in order to to be represented, but also to deconstruct stereotypes in a coding process. Because the problem is technically we can do something. We can change the codes and so on, because we have to keep in mind that at the beginning of the line there is some human, and the codes, the codings, and the algorithms are machine. And we can do technically, we can change it. But the other point that we face too is the mentality change and the evolution of the mentalities, and that point will take some time. And I just would like to quote some studies from McKinsey and BCG, shows that gender diversity in teams drive 30% extra performance and increase growth of 10%. That's huge. And in France, we know that the tech sector will offer huge opportunities, tremendous opportunities to ladies, to young students, young female studies, and that's these opportunities will be in the very next years. And it's really essential that young ladies goes in tech system. And for us, innovation, progress, and more women in tech and AI are just the stakes for tomorrow.
Could you maybe be a little bit more specific when we talk about these obstacles? Also, Petra said it, that we actually know, and we can, in my small world of IT, which I don't understand much, but if we know that the diversity and more women in the process are much better for the company, why not to learn, or for the process or anything, why not to learn the AI or whatever system to actually apply this knowledge? What, in your opinion, are the barriers over there? Who is creating this, or how is this created?
That's the problem of mentality. We have to change the mentality, and this problem is regarding the education. We have to educate our little girls in the same way as our little boys, and we have to teach our girls to be brave and not to be just perfect. And we, as Michelle Obama says it, there is nothing impossible for girls. So we have to encourage girls to go in STEM, and we have to, as I think it's Petra mentioned it, we have to attract these little girls, these students, these female students, to go in this field, and not only from the school point, but also when you are in the company. You have to be, when you are a talent, you have to be expected, you have to be attracted, but also that the role of the company to try to keep the female talents in tech, because there is a lot of little things to do and to attract them and to keep them in the company.
So it really seems that more girls will get into IT, more girls will be writing the codes for AI after all, and then perhaps that could be one of the keys. Serena wanted to comment, so if you have comments, go ahead. And
yes, so my comment was actually to fully support what Jana was saying, because we had kind of experiments with a number of motivational letters written by students when they apply for the university, okay, to come to the master university. So the way, I mean, even the algorithm was even for the algorithm was easy to classify letters written by women and letters written by men, because that's exactly what Jana was saying. So it was really the way, in a way, men are writing, even students, young men are writing, was like, I am the best, so you should take me, because otherwise you will lose me, And then someone else will take me. I'm a so brilliant student, you cannot just, and instead girls, all the language used by girls was more like, okay, so I will be able to, I will try to learn, I will try to improve, I will try to, so it was completely different. And of course, if we base on that, the system is of course biased.
Yes, Petra, you wanted to react?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that you have well described the side from the applicants, from women and men, but the similar thing happens on the side of companies. Imagine that very often companies complain that they do not have enough female participants at the hiring procedures. And when we are discussing with them and checking how they present the job profile, job descriptions, in Slovakia, there is a difference between men and male and female the version of the position. But often they present the position that we are looking for tester. But if you would like to attract women, you need to use another form, the Technická. And imagine this is really very small thing, but completely at the beginning, you are putting out all female, all women, because you are not preparing the job description to attract women. Because if I will read this, I will just say, okay, they are looking for a man, because they are really here in this job description is written that, yes, we are looking for the tester. And it's a very small and simple thing to change, but sometimes it's so difficult for them to understand what they are doing. So this is a really huge problem, and we can discuss about, we have so many stories in IT about teachers, how they're dealing with girls, so we can stay here for 3 hours at least. But yes, I think it will be more interesting to move to solution side.
Thank you, Petra, for doing that bridge for me. Before we move to solutions, there is one more question, and I also encourage you, our audience, to send us questions either here on Q&A and maybe to Facebook. There's a question which I really we received in advance. How is artificial intelligence self-identifying regarding its gender? Can artificial intelligence self-identify in gender means? If anyone can reply to that. If we teach it, then it can, right? Perhaps.
And learn everything.
To be a man. It can be. It would choose to be a man, white in 50s, perhaps, if we put all the data in. So let's go to the solutions and best practices, because I think this is exactly what we are all looking for. Serena, let's start with you. You already painted pictures how it goes in France in your institution. So maybe what, in your point of view, even if you would have an opportunities, because that also sometimes is a kind of a stone in the road, what would be the best AI application in order to really overcome biases that we are talking about?
Well, it's difficult to say that. I think that the first thing to be done for the future is what also Hélène was saying. So we really need to encourage the young women to try, to at least to give it a try. Okay, it doesn't mean that now every young girl should do research in AI or doing programs, writing programs and so on, but it means that they should be conscious that they can. And this is something which I think is still missing. From the technical point of view, okay, AI can. I think that we should think to something like ethics by design. So really having these at the very beginning, but it is hard, because if we go to solutions relying on huge amount of data, so more machine learning solutions, then there will be the bias induced in this data. It's very, very hard to get rid of it, because it is in the society. So it's difficult to get rid of this bias even in the society. So imagine in this data. And sometimes you cannot just have systems, where you rely on rules and so on, because they don't scale. So you have to balance all the different issues. I think the solution could be ethics by design, but if you ask me how concretely this has to be done, this is still, I would say, an open question.
And is there some kind of agreement, or at least some basis for this ethics on design? That somebody, that maybe IT practitioners are already agreeing onto this, that okay, we have some.
There are some work groups on that. So for instance, here in France, I'm part of the National Pilot Committee on Digital Ethics. So we are really looking at all these issues, and in particular regarding, for instance, chatbots, which is a kind of good example of AI applications where we could try to have this ethics by design. The problem is what is difficult is to think to a kind of general solution for all AIs, because here we talk about AIs, but there are many kinds of AI which are different. Sometimes are more just let's say machine learning application than really artificial intelligence applications. So it's hard. I think we are trying to do that but in specific scenarios, like for instance chatbots and so on.
Ms. Novohradska wants to react because you're working with ethics as well. So maybe a very similar question to you.
Yes, thank you. So yes, indeed, in Slovakia, we are very much following the EU strategies. And I'm very happy to report that within the ministry, we were able to appoint a committee for ethics and regulation in artificial intelligence that's chaired by Professor Bielikova, which again is a great win for the gender equality. And we are very proud to actually have been able to achieve it. And it's one of the measures in the action plan as well. And in terms of the ethics by design, and it starts with the ability to understand. And the ability to understand AI system is the nature or a feature of AI system to be explainable. Now, that is a technical problem and a technical question, and even a whole new research topic globally. The explainability of AI, and there are different approaches in terms of increasing the processing power, GPUs. There you have a new application of logic. And a lot of companies, in terms of practical guidance, within the European Union and European Commission, we have a practical tool. They actually were able to work, they worked backwards from the ethical guidelines that were adopted in 2018. They were able to create a pilot that was a survey, an active cooperation of companies across the EU, participated in terms of assessing their development processes according to this ethical assessment list. And then, based on the results of that pilot, they created a web tool that was designed by a university in Ireland. And that has now been, it's now available to general public and private companies. It's called Altai, ALTAI, and it's a web tool available to companies to go through an assessment list that's available through the web tool to determine or even just to see the questions in terms of the ethical design of artificial intelligence and the ethical practices. Another solution is for the companies to employ AI ethicists. And I'm very proud that even at the department, we have such a professional, and he's as well part of the KINIT and as well the Committee for the Ethics and the Regulation and the AI. So the direction from the European Commission is very much trustworthy, human-centric, explainable by design, and we are following and implementing this from the public sector perspective. Of course, there is a lot of work that needs to go into this, but I would like everyone to know that we are very much working actively on this.
Are there some kind of goals or metas that the government is setting for that?
So we do have the action plan up until 2022. Then there is the strategy for digitalization, which is up to 2030. And these are all anchored in EU policies and EU goals, and actually derived backwards from the coordinated plan on AI by the European Union. And this is this coordinated plan is revised, and there will be a repository of the current national EU strategies that will be a database which you can query. And it's a result of work or cooperation between OECD, AI Observatory, and European Commission AI Watch. So they are basically gathering data. There are trends, especially by non-for-profit organizations such as Algorithm Watch, which is a German-based non-for-profit organization to create a database of AI algorithms currently used, whether by private sector or public sector within EU, and map these AI algorithms to its function, uses, applications, and that is then building up the knowledge repository in terms of being able to understand what are the mainstream AI algorithms, what are the performance issues, and to help us build the capacities, because for example, I don't want to talk too much, but these are the solutions in terms of
yes.
It's about knowing, and this is a very fast growing area, and unfortunately it requires it requires a constant study, and there are no AI experts in terms of policy settings. We are all becoming AI experts on the go. So it's about you invest the time, you study, you do your research, you compare, you collect data, you again update the data. You have to have a data lifecycle policy, data architecture strategy. For example, Gaia X is a European huge program in terms of cloud data that should help us reach the European data sovereignty. And without data, we have no European AI, which we, as in terms of European positioning, Europe positioning itself in the global AI ecosystem is about being human-centric and trustworthy. And of course, we pride ourselves in being able to offer the first regulatory framework in terms of the AI Act. That is a first proposal by the European Commission to offer a certain regulatory framework for artificial intelligence, just like the GDPR was the first one.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you very much for explaining this. Hélène wants to react, but I also will give it the floor to maybe talk a little bit more of experiences and the best practices that you came across.
Oh, okay, thanks. I just wanted to react of what Jana just told in terms of regulatory, because I had the opportunity to attend to another roundtable from the French institution, and one of the proposed solution was to create the big audit organism in order to control, correct all the algorithm, the problem due to AA bias and AA stereotypes and so on.
But you can continue, I think, with the question. Perfect.
Okay,
so
I continue.
Friends and activities and the solutions that you are coming across.
Okay, thanks. Regarding the activities of Laboratoire de l'égalité, I would like to mention 2 dates for you. The first one was in 2019, where we perhaps you can see this book. It's written by Flora Vincent and Aude Berstein. Voilà, that's better, yeah. And the title is AA, Artificial Intelligence, Not Without Women. And it has been written by these 2 authors. And the introduction has been done by Cédric Villani, Probably you have already heard about it, about him, sorry. He's a French male mathematician and also researcher who has pointed the underrepresentation of women in tech. So we launched this book within the Laboratoire de l'égalité. And the other big issue from the Laboratoire de l'égalité was the launch last year in 2020, the launch of the Pact for an AI egalitarian, Pact for an egalitarian AI with 4 essential goals. First one, avoid the reproduction of gender inequalities in artificial intelligence. Second one, make AI a driving force for equality between female and male. Third one, accelerate gender diversity in all teams working on artificial intelligence, And the fourth, the last one is to mobilize all actors in AI for a non-sexist and ethical AI, and including all the stakeholders, I mean government, education, association, media, and one is missing, and companies, of course, companies. And in fact, just to quickly resume, the reduction of gender inequalities is not a simple woman battle, but mostly a societal topic. And we have to build together a better world, of course, but a better, it's essential to have an ethics, gender fair and sustainable AI in order to build better representation of the whole world. So regarding the best practice, we have our book, we have our part, and we have some possibility to create within the government this audit organism in order to stop to decrease the discrimination, the bias, and so on.
And what is your experience if you actually bring the book, create a conference, meet the tech representatives? How do they actually approach those ideas from your experience?
In fact, the point is that we have to federate all together all the stakeholders, and especially education. But we have to keep in mind that that's not the job of only women, but that's the men also. That if we want to go to manage and to be succeeded in this point, we have to embark males and men. And for the moment, there are not so many to are convinced by the cause, but that's why we have to build a better world. I mean, with 4 ends, women and men all together. And that's why we have the awareness. That's the crucial point: the education and awareness, and to organize some specific, like IBM, the French company, the company IBM in France organize some days of awareness, go to school, go to high school, and just to show that it's not impossible to go in text in a job in text for girls. And you have a lot of another association, another schools who try to call women, little girls to embrace all the jobs in the tech.
And as you're talking about education, I will turn to Martina. So maybe your recommendations or something that you actually experienced that is working while getting more women on board, while getting more women to create more codes and involve them into AI creation. What do you think about those?
I completely agree with my colleagues what they said already, what it was said, because there is a necessary the different approach to the pupil, to the students, and different approach of teaching, and it is necessary to put to the young people and to the young students that they have to present themselves. Yeah, because it is from the last year. As I remember my school when I was young, so we were completely different teaching methods as the teaching is today. And I think that at the moment, these times and the last years, the teaching practices and education practices are changing, what is very good, because in the past, we were taught to memorizing the things, memorizing the knowledge, memorizing everything. And at the moment, although young people at the basic school, although it's starting to be at university, the students have a huge amount of the data, and they cannot memorize this data. Then have to choose and selected the data which they used and which they didn't use, which they have to only to create how they and where they can find this data and how to work with that. And it is the today's and present methods of education that needs to be that the pupil and the students need to only create and thinking. We have to implement it in the teaching, and we are just starting to design thinking, prototyping, and such a new ecosystem and innovation methods in the education. And it is very necessary not to memorize, but to present themselves, their ideas, and the students do not know that, yeah? It is, if you are going to the Western school, maybe colleagues from the France that confirm it, that the situation in the Western countries, and they have the different teaching and different system of education. And it has to be changed also in Slovakia, because if the Central Europe, if these methods will be implemented in the teaching, so the girls will not be afraid to go and to work with the men and to use artificial intelligence, to use in working in the data sector and IT sector, because they will believe to themselves. So they will be stronger even. So I think that this different system in the education will encourage the girls to go and to work also in this IT industry. So I believe that it will be like this.
To be very realistic, do you think that it can happen within some time frame, or would you have some kind of time frame in your mind when we can actually change the education methods, and then it goes further so that we get more women into IT, and then it goes further so that women are equally getting paid as men in the IT or any other sector? Do you have, maybe it's a philosophical question, but do you have some kind of idea for that? You seem very optimistic, though. That's why I'm asking.
No, it is very good note, because I think that the women and the young girl especially wouldn't be like to depend it on men. They wouldn't to be by themselves, and they would like to earn more money. And nowadays we know that the much more money are in IT technologies. So if they would like to improve themselves and to have everything what they want and to be independent, they have to go to the IT sector to work and study it, sure.
Jana is concurring or raising hands.
Yes, I would like to say that I am a law graduate from Comenius University 2003. When I moved to London, I saw that I would have to spend at least 2 years converting my law degree, and it was extremely expensive. And there was an option to get a scholarship and convert to a tech sector at UCL. So I did that, and I made a choice based on the actual decision in terms of where the jobs are being created, where the money is. It was much cheaper for me to actually do that than to convert my law degree. So I did the computer science, financial computing at UCL, which was one of the first AI masters at UCL back in 2007. And it was an interesting concept in terms of creation of AI masters, which are interdisciplinary, because it was a finance and computer science together. So, but for that, as my colleague said, it's important that we have a school curriculum reform. We need a new digital curriculum suited for 21st century. There is an European Commission strategy to update, because this is like literacy at the big advanced digital skills, and digital literacy is like a literacy at the beginning of 20th century. You know, at the time it was as well daunting to be able to read and write, but now everyone can do that. And we have to approach the advanced digital skills, and it's not just about the tech sector, because the AI is actually being applied in every vertical sector, in healthcare, in agriculture. You have precision farming, then manufacturing, in smart city planning. It's going, whatever you are going to be in the future, whether you want to be an architect, whether you want to be a designer, you have to have the advanced digital skills, the digital literacy, and you have to be able to think innovatively and creatively.
Yes. Petra Kotuliakova, because Helen was talking about education, and she was also talking about awareness, and Jana also said that this inspiration needs to come once you have the awareness, then awareness can get you to a correct education. So what are your experiences and some practices that are actually working in order to create solutions for the topic that we talked today?
Yeah. Before moving to education, I would like to thank Hélène for raising the note about the males' participation in this discussion about lack of women in ICT. I have to say that sometimes I'm a little bit sad when discussing about this topic only with women. I think it can be, it's not a good image of this topic, because everyone can have an impression that it's only females topic, but it isn't. We need men in this discussion, and if it will be not men who will tell to everyone that we need women here, it will still seem that, oh, it's just the thing of girls. So we need to really shift this understanding and have men on this panel discussions. And on the other side, in the professional discussion covering the IT topics, here I'm missing very often women's participation. And it's not a problem that there is not a woman. The problem is that the organizer often didn't look for a while and didn't look for having the women's participation there. So it's the second problem here in those panel discussions, that please have a mixed panel discussion, because it can be only beneficial for audience and for all topics we are discussing. Concerning the education, well, for me, education is the beginning of everything. If we will not have well-educated, technologically educated girls and women, it will be hard to discuss about the biases, how we can fight them. It will be hard to discuss about the equality in AI and technology. So everything needs to start with education, and it's why we are really starting with 8-year-old girls, because here we can see that they are completely open-minded. They do not have any biases. They do not have any stress if it's a male subject or something other. We can see how it's easy, really, how it's easy to work with them, because going to high school, here we're fighting with a lot of prejudice, and here we need really to discuss a lot with them, because it was 18 years somebody told them that you are not good for being in tech, and we are arriving in this age and telling them no, you are really perfect, just and try, and so on. So it's so difficult. It's why we need to start working with the small girls, and after then all the work will be much more easy, and I see that we can see the result quite in a short term when taking this subject quite seriously.
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody can concur to this. We only have a couple of minutes to till the end, and it really passed way faster than I anticipated. So let's just have a very quick, short round, and with the last question, and it's going to be this for everyone, because we kind of understood that this biases is actually able to repeat like a history. So this time we have a much more powerful tool in our hands. So it shouldn't be happening, because much probably larger outcomes will come out of it. So if you could have like one idea or one recommendation for either men or women that is anyhow involved in creation of AI, what would you suggest to make sure that they think about equality and place of women in that tech sector? Ms. Novohradska.
Thank you. So quickly, the gender bias that's existing in society gets transformed into coded bias, and a coded bias amplified by the processing power of artificial intelligence can lead to systemic oppression. We don't want that. And we want to avoid that, because, you know, systemic oppression, we will need to have a revolution. No, we can do something before then. And what we need to do is to ensure that we understand what we are coding. We have to have tools to go back and examine, diagnose, remove, and correct. That's all. Thank you.
That's quite a clear plan. Thank you very much. Helen?
Just extra words. First one, intelligence collective intelligence, work together. And to complete what Jana just said, I would say to set ethic framework.
That's an important one. Serena?
Yes, so I think two things. We need, first of all, education. So educating programmers that could be this bias, make them aware, really aware of that, not just they heard these words. And of course, ensure that the AI applications look for an ethical design and a transparent and explicable one.
Thank you very much. Martina Zelenakova.
Thank you. I think that the diversity is very, very important in any sector and in any discussion, like, for example, this one today, because everybody is different. Every person, every human is different, because even male, female, different religion, different race, everybody is different, and everybody could have another and different contribution. But we all have, and we need each other, and we enrich ourselves. Because in what we are different, in what we are unique. So and what units us, we all need to be together and need some others' expression, opinion, ideas, and so on. So that's my opinion, and that it is very important.
And that sounds, again, very, very good to hear, and it's absolutely a very valid point. Petra Kotuliakova.
For me, what I would like to have in the very nice future, I would like to have less discussions and more actions, because I think we are still discussing, and we are not enough doing. And I understand discussing is quite cheap, and doing it's more expensive. So maybe this is the reason. But I think we need to switch it a little bit, because with this, we will wait for the result for a long time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for making this point. Thank you all for participating today, to our audience, for sending questions to us. We really appreciate it. I tried to put everything that we had into the discussion. Absolutely thank to our wonderful panelists, Hélène Deckx van Ruys, Petra Kotuliakova, Jana Novohradska, Serena Villata, and Martina Zelenakova. All five of you, thank you so much. I wish we see each other in person, and we have even better talk next time we see each other, maybe in Bratislava. Thank you very much to French Institute, Slovakia, Jan Potro, and community of the Ulysseus European University, because you helped us to organize it. And we are looking forward to French presidency. I have to say that, because if this is going to be one of the topic, then we are looking forward to talk about it, but then also execute much more. So once again, thank you very much. Have a good evening, and see you hopefully soon.
Thank you. Thank you to you too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.